How many more springs do you have left? If you're wanting opportunities, remember this. There is only a handful of springs in a lifetime given to everyone. So, think about this. If you're 30 and you live to be 80, you might have 50 springs left. If you're 40, you might have 40 springs left. If you're 50, maybe 30 springs left. And, that's the high end. And even within that, not every spring's going to be equally productive. Some you might deal with health issues or family circumstances, and other things will take priority. And then some of them years, the market's going to be terrible. So realistically, you might maybe at best have 10, 20 good springs left. And, to think about how many have you already wasted? I'm Brian Hill. I've owned multiple businesses for 20 years. And this chapter is about understanding the seasons of life in business and making the most of them, because each season has its own challenges and opportunities. And if you miss spring, you don't get it back. This is chapter 34, the seasons of life. And on a vacation journey, which the book is kind of based around, you'll choose what time of year or what season would be best to go. It needs to be winter time in Colorado if you're interested in skiing down a mountain full of snow. If you choose to see, beautiful orange trees, say in the Northeast, then you need to go in the fall. If you want to see, say, tulip fields, let's say the state of Washington in the spring. Or if you want to swim in a lake, you need to do it where there's warm air and, lots of sunshine. I guess if you want it to be enjoyable, so you need to do that in the summertime. On your business journey, each season will give its own challenges and opportunities, and you use each one for, to its advantage. Just like on your vacation journey, you would not drive around in the spring looking for, fall color. Or you wouldn't drive around in the fall looking for spring tulips. There's a time for everything, including a time to move forward in your business journey. And that's why you need to understand and make the most of each season of your life. The season of spring, we'll call it the window of opportunity. This is the time to explore, be flexible, and maybe even try new things. The spring season gives you new chances to create the future you desire. So, be bold, seek after these opportunities, maybe take some calculated risk. And the opportunities that are successfully chased after here in your springtime might be where most of your growth from your company goes. So if you want to grow, take advantage of the springs. And, the next season is summer. And during the summer season, it's time to maintain and protect what's been planted. And usually growth, it's quite plentiful in the summer, but it's also has its challenges, with the hot sun and bugs and possible droughts. So the plant will need to be watered, fertilized, so it grows properly. And the weeds are going to pop up and the bugs are going to eat everything. And, if this is allowed without properly watching your plant, there'll be no harvest. And all that work you did in the spring and maybe part of the summer will be lost. So the summer season is a time to work and to protect what was started. And, taking advantage of every opportunity that, really each season brings. The fall season is the time for harvest. This season is what the business owner strives for. The seed that was planted in the spring, it was protected in the summer, cared for, loved, it thrives, and then in the fall, it brings a harvest. And you need to see what type of seeds you even want. If you want apples, you need to be planting apple seeds, just so you get the apples at the harvest. But, if you're planting carrots, you can't expect apples. So, this season reveals what you've done in your other seasons. If you didn't do the work of planning, planting, protecting, and there'll be no harvest. If you did do the work and have a great harvest, don't be ashamed or feel guilty. That's where I see a lot of business owners struggle. I've struggled with that. You end up, you're being blessed, things are going well, and there's always someone, oh, it must be nice. It must be nice to be able to buy that or do this or have that. But if you've done the work, do not feel guilty. And really, the harvest shows that you've put in the work and you deserve the fruits of your labor. So don't feel guilty. And then, there's also winter. And, if you did prepare when winter comes, it's not an issue. You can use it for a time of rest. But if you go into it unprepared, winter can be difficult. So, you do want to make sure you take care of your opportunities in the other seasons, because when that winter comes, there's no work, and things get rough. So make sure you're planting your seed there in the spring, maintain it in the summer so you can have your harvest there in the fall. And failure to have an abundant harvest will leave you struggling in the winter months. But if you prepared for the winter season, it could be a good time. That could be where you take your vacations, or you spend time with the family, or just sharpen your own mind so you can be the best in your industry. Develop your skills, rest, and just take advantage of this time, and reflect on the work that's been done in the other seasons. So do this so you have enough skill, energy, and wisdom to go after the opportunities that the spring's going to bring you. So you can have another fall harvest. That's great. So how many more springs do you have? I don't know the answer for you, but I do know it's fewer than you think. I've wasted a lot of springs. I've planted seeds, then I didn't protect them in the summer. And, I failed to harvest properly in the fall, maybe because I got lazy. And, I've had winters that arrested and used the opportunities I had. And then I had winters, where I struggled to get by, because I didn't prepare properly. I've had springs where I've seized opportunities, summers, I've worked hard, and abundant falls. So, here's what I learned about the seasons of life and business. Spring is the window of opportunity. Don't waste it. Jump on those opportunities, try new things, be bold, take calculated risk. You only get a few, a handful of springs in a lifetime, and take your opportunities there in the summer. Protect what you've planted. Water it, fertilize it, protect it from the weeds and the bugs. Tend that garden so it doesn't wither away, so you can have your harvest there in the fall, because the fall reveals what you've done in the other seasons. If you've planted in the spring, protected in the summer, harvest in the fall, maybe sharpen your knowledge in the winter, you're going to have the harvest that you desire. Just make sure you're planting the seeds you want. If you want apple seeds, make sure you're planting apple seeds. And then, there in the fall, don't be ashamed or feel guilty when you receive an abundant harvest, because it does show you put in the hard work. And then, the winter months, use it for rest and, preparation for the other seasons. But, it's great if you've prepared in the other seasons, because, this downtime, it's a good time to enjoy and have the rest that you need to sharpen your knowledge and to reflect on all the seasons. Just, each season affects how you see the next one. And, if you skip a spring, you're not going to have anything to protect in the summer, and it means you won't have a harvest. And if you don't harvest in the fall, you might struggle in a winter. So these seasons are connected, and, you can't skip one and expect to go for the rest of them to go well. So in your business journey, you'll experience these seasons of life. Whatever season you're in right now, take advantage of it. See all that it has for you to offer and prepare for the next seasons to come. So I'll ask again, how many more springs do you have? 10, 20, 30, maybe just a couple? Don't waste them. This is chapter 34 from my book, Business is a Journey, Not a Destination, and this journey is your life. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. I'll be releasing all the chapters right here. The next chapter, we're talking about the end of your business journey. So having something of value to cash in on for all your years of hard work. So take advantage of the seasons of life. You only get a handful. Thanks for watching.